Isn't it funny how people can measure your worth by the stains on your uniform instead of the weight of your name? Every morning, like clockwork, Roosevelt Rosie Jenkins made his way through the revolving doors of First Lexington National Bank, situated on Main Street in Lexington, Kentucky. The towering red brick building, once a tobacco warehouse, now gleamed under the Kentucky sun with tall white columns, a testament to both old Southern architecture and new money. Rosie was the bank's cleaner, a title he carried with quiet dignity. His days were filled with scrubbing marble floors, wiping fingerprints off glass counters, and emptying trash cans that seemed to breed as quickly as bad customer moods. His gray jumpsuit was stained with streaks of cleaner, a mop bucket trailing behind him like a second shadow. Cynthia Blake, the head teller, made sure Rosie's every move was noted and scoffed at. "You're going so slow, Rosie. It's like you're trying to clean the dust off a glacier," she'd say with a sarcastic grin, tapping away on a keyboard with nails painted the exact shade of aggressive red. She was a woman who never missed an opportunity to remind everyone who the real boss was at the front line. Her desk sat like a throne right beneath the bank's brass clock, the one that chimed loudly every hour, almost mocking the rhythm of Rosie's work. Rosie said nothing. He simply nodded, offering the kind of patient smile that only decades of experience and resilience could forge. Cynthia wasn't just rude because he was slow or old. No, it was more complicated. The tension hung heavy, a historical echo you could almost taste in the air, a legacy of prejudices buried beneath polite society, now whispered through curt glances and clipped sentences. The irony wasn't lost on Rosie. He had seen more winters than the marble pillars outside, and he knew this bank wasn't just a building with vaults. It was a monument to a long battle for dignity and respect in a city with a complicated history of race and class. Rosie remembered his own grandfather's stories about the Jim Crow era in Louisville, about bus seats, about water fountains marked colored only. Lexington wasn't Louisville, but the shadows stretched long. And yet here he was, cleaning floors in a place that didn't know the story behind the man with the mop. One particular Tuesday, after a slow morning of dusting teller windows and straightening chairs, Rosie found himself on the receiving end of Cynthia's sharp tongue once again. "Why don't you speed up, Grandpa? These floors aren't going to polish themselves, and frankly, some of us are trying to get real work done." Rosie smiled.
If life were a bank, Cynthia Blake had the highest interest rate, on attitude. By midweek, the First Lexington National Bank was humming with the usual buzz of tellers counting cash, clients tapping impatiently on smartphones, and Rosie carefully polishing the marble floors to a mirror shine. It was the kind of place where time moved slowly for some and far too quickly for others. Today was Cynthia's birthday, and the staff had begrudgingly organized a surprise party in the break room. The cake was a towering confection of white frosting and pink icing roses. The words, "Happy Birthday, Cynthia," carefully piped across the top, though suspiciously the C looked more like an S, a small sugary slip-up that Rosie noticed immediately. "See?" he muttered to himself as he polished the trophy shelf. "Even sugar can be bitter sometimes." The party was less of a celebration and more of a hostage situation. The tellers smiled stiffly, the loan officers nursed lukewarm coffee, and Cynthia herself was a star performer, radiating a kind of forced cheer that only birthdays and corporate expectations could produce. Rosie wasn't invited, at least not officially. He stood just outside the break room door, quietly wiping a nearby window with a rag, catching snippets of Cynthia's voice. "Oh, look, the janitor finds it funny," Cynthia sneered, cutting through the awkward silence like a bad check. "Maybe he'd like to try balancing my ledger instead of just balancing his mop bucket." The staff laughed nervously because no one wanted to be the next target of Cynthia's sharp tongue. Rosie's smile deepened, slower this time, almost savoring the irony. Later that afternoon, a man stepped into the bank's lobby that no one expected. He was tall, impeccably dressed in a charcoal gray suit that contrasted beautifully with his smooth, dark skin. His presence was magnetic, not just because of the way he carried himself, but because of the calm authority that seemed to ripple through the air around him. He approached the receptionist and requested to see the branch manager. The assistant manager, Kevin, rushed to gather the staff. Minutes later, everyone assembled in the main hall, faces puzzled and curious. Cynthia folded her arms, clearly unimpressed, the self-assured queen of this concrete castle. The man stepped forward, a small smile playing on his lips. "My name is Reginald Roosevelt Jenkins," he began, voice steady but warm. "I am, in fact, the owner of this bank." A few gasps floated through the crowd like startled birds. "Owner?" Kevin whispered, eyes wide. "I thought the bank was publicly owned." Rosie remained silent, watching the room react. Reginald continued, "I have chosen to work here undercover, not out of necessity, but out of conviction. To see how my business operates when I'm not looking, to see how my employees treat each other, and most importantly, how they treat the customers." Cynthia's face hardened, disbelief turning into a cocktail of embarrassment and anger. Rosie finally spoke, his voice calm but unmistakable. "Some of us see the stains on the floor, some of us see the stains on our hearts," he said. "It's easy to judge what's visible, harder to confront what's hidden." The room was silent, every eye on Cynthia, her mask cracked, a fleeting glimpse of vulnerability flashing across her face before she straightened up. "Maybe it's time we clean more than just floors," Reginald added, and the weight of those words settled like dust. Only this time, it wasn't going anywhere. Monday morning arrived with a crispness in the Kentucky air that promised new beginnings. The sun rose over Lexington, casting long shadows from the courthouse dome onto Main Street, as if nature itself was spotlighting a moment of reckoning. First, Lexington National Bank looked just the same on the outside, stately, proud, polished. But inside, something had shifted. Cynthia Blake did not return to her usual spot at the teller window. Instead, a quiet memo circulated. She had been reassigned to the bank's rural branch near Bowling Green. It was a place where the cell service was so poor that customers relied on good old-fashioned face-to-face conversations and the occasional handshake. A place where Cynthia's sharp edges would likely dull against slow, quiet country life. Kevin, the assistant manager who had always respected Rosie quietly, was promoted to branch manager. He started the day by offering Rosie a fresh cup of coffee, his smile sincere and free of the usual awkwardness. The bank staff, once stifled by Cynthia's biting sarcasm and thinly veiled prejudice, now seemed lighter, freer to treat customers like people rather than numbers. Bonuses were quietly awarded for kindness and patience, not for polished shoes or fast keystrokes. And Rosie? He still arrived every morning at 6:45 a.m. sharp, mop in hand, jumpsuit faded, but clean. He swept the floors with the same slow, steady rhythm as always, but now the hallways echoed with greetings and smiles. "Good morning, Mr. Jenkins," said a teller, a sparkle of genuine respect in her eyes. Rosie paused near the front desk, where a gleaming brass plaque had appeared overnight. Reginald R. Jenkins, founder and owner. With a slow, knowing smile, Rosie looked up at the shining bank windows, the light refracting like 1,000 little promises. "Funny how clean a place can get," he whispered to himself, "when people start seeing what's really dirty." The staff exchanged glances, feeling the weight of those words settle deeply, because sometimes the greatest cleaning doesn't happen with mops and buckets. It happens when hearts and minds are swept clean of bias and respect is restored where it was long overdue.